working for you on RTV6. From RTV6, Indianapolis This Week.
Welcome to Indianapolis This Week. An ethics violation at the Indiana State House. Both the president and vice president visit parts of Texas hit hard by Hurricane Harvey. But first, a conversation with Congressman Carson. He's addressing recent reports on an FBI investigation into a shared Democratic staffer. He's also talking about health care. I asked if there's any room for negotiation from Democrats' perspective, and if so, what it would be.
If you're talking about taking away protections for women, if you're talking about removing the pre-existing condition protections, if you're talking about removing the provision that allows parents to keep their kids on insurance plans until they're 26, these are all non-negotiable for me. I think anything that's on the Republican agenda to reel back affordable care and health care for millions of Americans, over 30 million Americans, it's non-negotiable. Do
you think President Trump has the stability to lead?
I think Donald Trump is smart. He's not a politically invested person. He doesn't have the political astuteness of a Barack Obama or Bill Clinton or the measured position of a George Bush, but he's a different kind of smart, and his provocations yield great results. And I think his entertaining personality has become a distraction and has impacted morale at the State Department. It's impacted morale at the White House. And it's really jeopardizing our relationships globally. And I think his display of leadership is too impulsive. I think he doesn't have the temperament to be a president, and it concerns me that he is too sensitive as it relates to reacting to every slight or insult, because that comes with the business of being an elected official. And I think his style is wearing down on the American people. Even folks who have voted for him, there's some seller's remorse.
Does your former staffer, Imran Awan, still have an active email address? There are reports from the Daily Caller that there's an active email address for him linked to a staff member that works on intelligence issues for you.
Well, Imran is not, never has been a staffer of the office of Congressman Carson. He is what's called a shared employee. So there could be of any number of 12 members of Congress or 15 or 20 of us who may share an IT person. The different caucuses share employees to do different work. And it's an ongoing investigation. He was hired to perform a job, and when he could no longer perform that job, I fired him. And I think in a very real sense, what we're dealing with, we'd have to let the authorities get to the bottom of this. The Daily Caller is not a reputable entity. I think that they've proven themselves to be very bigoted, Islamophobic, anti-black, and I think it goes along with their narrative of anybody who's foreign, who happens to be a Muslim, happens to be black, happens to be Latino, who conducts unethical acts. They want to condemn the entire Congress. I mean, you don't know what your co-anchor is going to do. He or she could rob a bank, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're attached to the crime. I think it's unfortunate what's happening with Imran, but we're going to let justice do its job. I mean, I hold my staffers to the highest ethical and moral standards, and when you have a shared employee who's shared by other members of Congress, we don't know what that person's doing. And when he could no longer perform his duties, I fired him.
Is the email still active?
I don't think so. With my legislative director, Nathan is working it out with, I think it's been terminated through the House process system. So Nate he's a fellow Hoosier. He worked for Senator Donnelly. He's been with me since I've been in Congress. He's very talented. He's a good dad. He's a good deputy chief of staff and legislative director. He's a proud American. Nate would never do anything to compromise our national security.
Texas devastated. Harvey is blamed for dozens of deaths around the state's Gulf Coast, including in Houston and Beaumont. The rebuilding process could take years. We're learning Harvey evacuees living in the U.S. illegally are being assured by immigration advocates that they won't be targeted for deportation. Vice President Mike Pence visited Texas, and unlike President Trump, he toured the devastation.
You've inspired the nation by your resilience and by your courage. And we just came here to commend you and to encourage you.
This week, the vice president's response to the storm was not entirely without controversy. Pence spoke with media outlets across Texas, and some critics say there is one host Pence should have avoided. The vice president appeared on Houston conservative talk station KTRH with host Michael Berry. Berry has been repeatedly criticized for what his critics have called offensive comments toward African Americans, Latinos, Muslims, and members of the LGBT community. The radio host also features a white comedian who appears in blackface as a frequent guest on his show. Pence's office posted an official transcript of the interview. His office clarifies the host in question did not book the interview. Mark Lauder, press secretary for the vice president, issued a statement saying Pence conducted an interview on a highly rated radio news station during an emergency situation. Lauder went on to say the interview was initially scheduled to be with a different KTRH anchor. This week, Call 6 Investigates learned the Marion County Sheriff's Office and area police departments are making a deal. The sheriff will stop transporting inmates beginning in January. Initially, Sheriff John Layton had announced that due to budget issues, he planned to stop using his jail wagons on September 24th. He'd also planned to pull deputies from Marion County hospitals like Eskenazi. Both actions are now delayed to January 1st. The Arrestee Processing Center is scheduled to close on September 24th. After that date, people who are arrested will be taken to the lockup in the basement of the CCB. A former state official has to pay a $2,000 fine after admitting to ethics violations. Amanda Alvey worked as a policy director at the state's Family and Social Services Administration. FSSA hired a public consulting group to help facilitate a transition plan. Alvey left the agency last summer. A month later, she went to work for the consulting group, even though she was involved in administering the company's contract in her role for the state. An investigation by the Inspector General found Alvey violated the state's post-employment rules and the cooling off period. Up next, our political insiders on the impact of early voting and automatic voter registration, plus the president and vice president's visits to Texas.
October 3rd, Brussels Bacon on ABC.
Welcome back. We are joined by our political insiders now. Conservative Abdul Hakim Shabazz, Democrat John Zodi. Thanks for being here.
Oh, it's good to be here.
We saw both the president and vice president visit parts of Texas this week. What do you take away from those two separate visits?
Well, I think that the administration response looked like Mike Pence upstaged Donald Trump here. I was watching Good Morning America on Friday morning, and it said the president, or the vice president, broke a sweat by lifting limbs and being out among the hurricane victims, while the president sat and said he watched and saw things firsthand. But in fact, that wasn't the case. So I think we're going to see Mike Pence having upstaged the president in this instance.
I wouldn't go so far as to say upstage. And anybody who's watched this program knows I'm not necessarily the biggest Donald Trump fan of the universe, but I thought both the president and the vice president, this is the one time that government actually works. This is what they're supposed to do when it comes to natural disasters and cleanup efforts. If you look at what we saw with Hurricane Katrina almost 12 years ago compared to what we see with Hurricane Harvey, it is completely night and day. And so the president and the vice president and the whole administration, not usually a big fan, but they get kudos for this.
They show leadership.
Right. And that's what you're supposed to do, which is making sure materials get there, and even Republicans have gone so far as to say, we're going to help hurricane victims and push a debt ceiling in the conversation, leave that off the table. That's how you govern during a crisis.
That's what some Republicans are saying. I think it still remains to be seen whether the president himself has said he's willing to shut down the government over the border wall. So it remains to be seen. While some Republicans may be saying that, I think we've seen that the president doesn't necessarily agree, and vice versa with what congressional Republicans say. So there's still a long way to go in this recovery process from the hurricane, several stages of that process. So a lot of Republicans stood up and opposed hurricane relief when Hurricane Sandy came through New Jersey in 2012. Mike Pence stood up and was in opposition to Hurricane Katrina relief on the floor of the House back in 2005. So still a lot of things to be determined here. The important thing is that people get the help they need, and I don't think the people in charge have proven that in the past they're always willing to do that.
Do you think early voting here in Indiana and access to it can make a difference in the outcome? We heard Secretary of State
100%.
Connie Lawson make remarks.
It does not move the needle at all.
Absolutely false.
The data shows clearly. As a matter of fact, to get ready for this program, I went back and looked at some early voting numbers in Marion County. The only time early voting has actually had more people turn out and the race went up was Barack Obama, 2008. It is candidates and issues that will drive voter turnout. It is not more early voting. All you do is the people who wanted to vote, they voted early.
Well, I see Abdul's taking the talking points from Secretary Lawson. Last week I was visiting a friend in a hospital, and his nurse told me I didn't have time to vote on Election Day because I had to work, because she works a 12-hour shift. It's time Republicans in this state start understanding that voters need access. All eligible voters need as many opportunities to vote and opportunities to go to the ballot box, go to the clerk's office, exercise that constitutional right to vote during an election season. The Secretary of State is trying to drive a narrative that will lead to the reduction of early voting in this state, while Republicans in Hamilton County think it's just fine for people to vote early there. They seem to think it's not okay in Marion County. So,
well, you can
put all the statistics you want.
Because
people need the right
you call them statistics, my friend. I call them facts, and the facts are clear. Is that in Indiana, you can vote up to 30 days before Election Day.
You can
do it by mail. And actually, County Lawson has promoted no-fault absentee voting, so you don't have to give a specific reason. You just want to vote early, do it by mail, and get out the way. You can do that.
The facts are Hamilton County had 3 early voting sites this last election. The facts are the Republican election board member in Hamilton County didn't vote for that, so we had 1 at the city county building where it's harder to park, harder to get access. So the facts are
the main reason
that people are not doing what they say they're doing. When County Lawson says she wants people to have an expanded right to vote, action doesn't follow.
And actually the main reason why Marion County didn't have voting, because the clerk's office, my eligible folks, God love them to death, did not communicate with the Republican about the actual location. And they didn't drop the ball to the last. They didn't drop to the last minute.
What more needs to be communicated than here's a constitutional right that needs to be expanded?
Yeah, but the question is, where are you going to expand that right?
There's nothing else to say.
No, where are you going to put the voting location?
There are plenty of places.
Okay, and you're right. But when you drop it at the last minute, like, hey, whoa, wait a second, you got to check security, you got to check poll workers, the whole 9 yards. But at the end of the day, early voting does not increase voter turnout. All you do is people who are going to vote, they do it early and get it out the way. If you look back in the look back in the last election with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, so many people came out and voted early in Hamilton County and the donut counties because most of them couldn't stand Hillary Clinton. That was the motivation enough for those guys to go out. But they did what? At the end of the day, the numbers still didn't change. We're still looking at the same percentages.
People need as many opportunities to vote and many places to vote as possible during an election season. I could not disagree with Abdul more on this point.
Quick yes or no, automatic voter registration, would it make a difference?
Yes.
Nope.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. We are out of time. Thank you both so much for being here. Up ahead, a petition to remove a mural on the Indiana University campus, plus a crime that is driving a local activist to demand answers. You're watching Indianapolis this week. It's a mystery that's left the founder of the First Church of Cannabis devastated. This week, Bill Levin says someone killed his beloved peacock. The bird's name was Bert, and Levin says he brought joy to the entire neighborhood. He says he doesn't understand who would do this.
How in your heart could you kill something so wonderful, so peaceful, so beautiful? It's just horrible.
Levin is an avid animal lover who keeps goats, chickens, even a 3-legged cat at his home. But out of all of his animals, Levin said Bert was special. He says he plans to increase security to protect his other animals. An online petition campaign is urging Indiana University to remove a mural that depicts a Ku Klux Klan rally. The artwork is mounted on the wall of a lecture hall. The issue seems to be revisited every decade, and in the wake of the recent violence in Charlottesville, the issue is back. RTV6's Derek Thomas has more.
The mural issue is not new. There's even a display case that talks about the Klan controversy. The mural itself is mounted on the wall inside a classroom in Woodburn Hall. On it, you can see a fiery cross and at least one person in a hooded white robe, emblematic of the KKK.
I think it's unnecessary and that it should go.
Why?
It's racist in that there's no point in having, like, even if it's history, there's no point in having that broadcasted on the walls.
The university issued a statement that said the mural's presence helps ensure history will not be repeated. Tatiana Cullum is unconvinced.
It should be removed because it is racist, and just like I read earlier, we have a diverse campus, they should say, so they can't just bring out like one part of history and not the other one.
The university says it will continue to provide personal support and other resources through its Division of Student Affairs and Office of the Vice President for Diversity, Equity, and Multicultural Affairs for any students or staff members who are experiencing an issue that impacts their ability to succeed or feel at home at IU.
It does matter, and it's offensive to people like me, people who've been subjected to racial profiling, etc., and all that stuff.
The Change.org petition hopes to garner 1,000 signatures before it can be presented to President Michael McRobbie and the IU Board of Trustees. It hopes to persuade them that the mural should come down. Derek Thomas, RTV6.
Women in Madison County will have a new resource as they face one of life's more challenging moments. The First Choice for Women clinic opened Thursday afternoon in Anderson. It offers a number of free services. The nonprofit Pregnancy Resource Center has been in Muncie for more than 30 years, and the organization recently noticed a need in Anderson. First Choice says it explains all options to women as they face pregnancy, but the clinic does not perform abortions.
We offer free pregnancy tests and ultrasounds. We have a parenting education course with over 100 lessons that help young mothers learn how to, be the best parents they can be.
I went through a lot of emotions. This was my very first pregnancy. I had only been married for about 3 years. We really wanted to be pregnant, and so we were super excited.
The clinic gives new baby cribs and mattresses to women who go through the parenting program. While the clinic will not perform abortions, it does offer some post-abortion care. Coming up next, back with 6 things you need to know that are happening around Indy this week. That's coming up next on RTV.
For you.
And a look at our forecast calls for any of those clouds that were out there this morning to lead to a lot of sunshine this afternoon. We'll move that system out. High pressure builds, and we're looking pretty good through the rest of the day today and into the early part of your Labor Day forecast. Unfortunately, there is a chance for some storms later in the evening on your Labor Day. Some of those could be on the strong to severe side. We'll have to keep an eye on those. And it's going to be a warm forecast. Look at the temperatures. We're going 82 for today. That's just the start of the warm up. Again, any clouds out there this morning are now gone. 88 for our forecast for your Monday. Keep in mind, not only is it going to be a warm forecast, some would call it a hot forecast, it's also going to be breezy. We're talking about gusts over 25 to 30 miles per hour, and we do have that chance for a few storms, especially into the evening. A slight risk of severe weather is possible here in the northern part of our viewing area. Taking a look at the rest of the forecast, here you go. Temperatures go from those 80s back down to the 70s, and yes, even 60s for highs.
Welcome back to Indianapolis This Week. I'm Lauren Casey. It's time for the 6, so let's take a look at 6 things coming up this week in Indy. Starting with You Dirty Dog. A dog fundraiser is taking over City Market downtown on Wednesday. Bring your pooch from 10 until 2. This is a fundraiser for the Indianapolis Animal Care Services. Baths are $10 and nail grooming is just $5. A fun event heading to malls near you this Friday is all for our kids with disabilities at the Castleton Square Mall, Greenwood Park Mall, and also College Mall in Bloomington. Kids with disabilities can take part in these free, fun, simulated rides that allow them to run, fly, swim, and much more. The event runs from 10 until 9. And on Saturday, you can wake up bright and early and head on out to the Boone County Fairgrounds. They're holding a bike ride for multiple sclerosis at 6:30 in the morning. More than 200 cyclists are expected to show up and raise more than $170,000 for this cause. Well, it's a puppy palooza, and this summer is going to the dogs. But before Freedom Springs in Greenwood drains their pools for the fall, your furry friend can enjoy a day of swimming on Saturday. This pool party takes place from 1 until 4. All the proceeds benefit the Humane Society of Johnson County. It's back. The beloved Penrod Arts Fair is taking over the Indianapolis Museum of Art this weekend. On Saturday from 9 until 5, you can browse all of these displays. More than 100 artists will be there, and you can enjoy entertainment on the 6 stages. And make sure you get your free tickets right now to the Colts kickoff concert. This one's on Georgia Street on Saturday because space there is limited. A variety of acts will perform downtown from 4:30 until 10 to get you pumped up to cheer on the boys in blue this upcoming season. That's what's on tap in Indy this week. Back to you.
It's been a special week in Columbus. A motion picture carrying the city's name was screened to a VIP audience before its national release on Friday. John Poe and Parker Posey star in Columbus. The film follows a man visiting his ailing father, an architect who's visiting the city. It's also a loving look at the city's world-famous architecture filmed in Indiana last year. For the people at Thursday night's screening in Columbus, it was a chance to see their hometown like they've never seen it before.
Overwhelmed. It was just amazing to see the architecture that in the city that we take for granted and on the full screen, and so it was exciting and amazing and just thoroughly enjoyed it.
We were both talking, Mary and I, leaving the theater. We've got to see it again. There's a lot to catch, but yeah, great piece of art.
After the movie, there was a special Q&A with the director and actors. The public red carpet premiere, stars and all, was Friday night in downtown Columbus. The movie is getting glowing reviews. A big honor for a kindergarten teacher. Susan Thomas of Homecroft Kindergarten Academy is one of 15 finalists in the National Dream Big Teacher Challenge. It's sponsored by the Farmers Insurance Thank America's Teacher Initiative. Thomas is the only Indiana teacher to be a finalist for this year's $100,000 grant.
I've acted out my life in stages with 10,000 people watching. But we're alone now, and I'm singing this song to you.
Yes, that is the Victor Oladipo. The former IU star and brand new Indiana Pacer has been talking about pursuing his passion of singing. Now he has released his first single. It's a cover of R&B legend Donny Hathaway's song For You. Oladipo says Hathaway is one of his favorite artists. He told the website Complex that while some rappers have come out of the NBA, not too many singers have. Perhaps a second career when basketball is all said and done. Thank you for joining us for Indianapolis this week. For our entire production team here at RTV6, we hope you have a great Labor Day and rest of your holiday weekend.